일각에서는 인구 고령화가 되면 노인들의 아주 숙련된 지식, 축적된 지식과 경험이 오히려 우리 경제 전체의 생산성을 높일 수 있다. 하는 긍정적인 부분을 보시기도 합니다. 그래서 혹시 인구학적으로 봤을 때 이게 인구 고령화가 뭐 경제적인 것 말고도 혹시 사회에 긍정적인 어떤 걸로 작용할 수 있는 어떤 그런 측면이 좀 있는 건지.
One way to look at this problem is that this is the kind of problem you want to have. This is the kind of problem that results from solving another problem. Like we talked about before, this came from solving the problem of high fertility and rapid population growth, and in some sense it's a very good problem to have, because at least at the individual level, people are living longer and enjoying longer lives, and young women and young couples have more time to enjoy for other things in life, and they have more time to invest in each child individually because they're having smaller families. So there are many benefits at the individual level. Living longer, smaller families, more things to do with life. I don't know about the number you said, the economy would, the growth rate would slow to 1% because of population aging. This is a prediction of economists. I don't know if that's well agreed, that that's what's going to happen. One thing that happens in aging societies is that there's a lot more saving. People invest, and because you have a much larger a population of older people who have been saving for a long time, the total pool of assets tends to be larger, and therefore there's a lot of capital available for investment, which can lead to increases in productivity. And therefore I don't know that it's necessarily true that the growth rate slows down. I'm not sure that economists would agree with that, or not all economists. Some people call this the second demographic dividend. You know, the first demographic dividend is the larger population of working age because fertility has fallen recently. But the second demographic dividend is this idea that as populations become older, because people have been saving throughout their life course, there will be this big pool of capital available, which can encourage, if it's invested productively, it can improve the productivity of labor, and therefore support continuing economic growth. So I'm not absolutely sure that that's an accurate prediction, but I'm not an economist, so I can't really comment extensively on that. But the individual advantages are fairly clear, and it's, I think, a question then of how to manage the social support mechanisms that we've talked about before. Many individual advantages, and we can certainly always appreciate those at least.
서구 사회는 굉장히 인구 고령화가 한국보다 일찍 진전이 됐기 때문에 이런 문제들이 굉장히 일찍 발생했습니다만 한국은 최근 들어서야 인구 고령화 문제가 굉장히 심각해져서 세대 간 갈등, 그것까지 이제 경제 조짐들이 특히 연금계획이라든지 의료 비용을 어느 세대가 부담할 것인가 최근에 이제 서서히 이제 세대 간의 갈등 조짐이 보이고 있는데, 이렇게 이제 인구 고령화를 맞아서 세대 간 갈등을 어떻게 잘 문제를 대응을 해서 사회 통합을 이룰 수 있는 어떤 대책이 필요하고, 어떤 대책이 그런 해결에 도움이 되는지 궁금합니다. 먼저 앞서가는 국가로서의 경험을 좀 이야기해 주시면 될까요?
That's a very difficult question, because that goes beyond the demography into the politics of how the generations interact with each other. And I think, of course, it's very important to emphasize the social solidarity between the generations and the sense of responsibility that the young have to the old and old to the young. I think it's also important to emphasize in some cases that it's not a zero-sum game. For example, when it comes to jobs, there's often a concern that if the old keep working, then it takes jobs away from the young. But if the old keep working, it means that the economy is larger, and there's more production happening, and therefore more opportunities for economic activity, including for the young. I don't know that I have general advice to give about how to approach this. It's important to. I think it's important to establish social protection systems for the elderly that are realistic. I think this is one thing that has happened in many European countries and has caused many problems now. They created social protection systems for the elderly that were extremely generous, based on based on not being aware of population aging as a long-term demographic change. And so this created expectations among people that they would receive many benefits late in life, that they would be guaranteed these benefits. But then it became very difficult for governments to afford them. So one of the problems, I think, was over-promising, over-committing, without a long-term view of what population aging would mean for those social protection systems. So maybe that's one of the most important lessons for a country like Korea to take from the other countries that have undergone this experience is, yes, it's important to offer social protection to groups in need, to age groups in need, and in particular, very old, very young. But if you make too many promises, for example, with regard to retirement age, I don't know how this works in Korea. Is there a normal retirement age? Is it 65?
60. 정년이
60세보다 훨씬 전에 리타이어를 하게 되고.
legally 60, but a lot of people get retired, before they reach 60. Legally it's 60, but realistic, earlier than 60.
But in terms of the government programs that are being established to support people through pensions and health care, at what age do you become eligible for those? At 65 you become eligible. And then is there a plan to increase that over time? Yes.
연금 에이지를 올릴
지금 이미 연금 계획을 해서 지금 올라가고 있다고.
Yes, we are going through this restructuring the pension system.
Yeah.
So the receipt age will rise.
Go up. Yes.
최근에 정년을 연장하는 사회적인 관심을 보입니다.
And there's also a social consensus to extend the working age.
So I think again this is where problems can arise because populations are not prepared mentally, psychologically for the fact that this is going to change, that this needs to change over time, that you cannot just have a constant retirement age for now and the next 100 years. It's important that that goes up, but it's important that populations understand that. So I think there's an important education function, and this is where the work of your Statistics Korea and of the demographic community is very important to help people understand that these are not constant numbers, that there are things that must change over time with the increase of lifespan.
정치경제학자들이 분석한 바에 따르면 점점 유권자 중에서 이제 노인들의 비중이 점점 높아지기 때문에 사실상의 지금 말씀하신 그런 개혁들이 잘 실제적으로 폴리티컬리 이게 잘 안 되는 측면이 굉장히 많다. 그래서 일본 학자들이 일부긴 합니다만 아주 재미있는 아이디어를 내는 거예요. 태어나지 않은 미래 세대들에게도 보팅 권한을 줘야 된다. 그래서 아이를 가지고 있는 부모에게 투표권을 아이 숫자만큼 더 주는 어떤 그런 지금 운동을 그런 주장을 하고 있는 학자들까지 있다. 그래서 이게 우리가 학자들 사이에서는 이게 학문적으로는 답이 나올 수 있는 거지만 현실에서 그걸 실제로 임플리멘트하기 위해서는 이런 정치 제도 자체를 조금 바꿔야 된다는 논의가 좀 있다고 재미있는 에피소드라고 그냥 들어보신 적이 있냐고 모르겠어요.
So this is, I think this is a variant of something that's called domain voting. Domain was a demographer, or is a demographer. He's just retired. He's 80 years old. from the Population Council, Paul Demain. And if you can look this up on Wikipedia. You look up Demain voting. There's an entry on Wikipedia for this. But the idea is that you give voting rights to people based also on the number of children that they have. So if you have more children, you acquire more voting rights. That this is a way to rebalance the political process so that we give more attention to the needs of younger generations. It's a very interesting idea, but I think it's been reinvented by different people in different contexts. I think there are some examples where it's been implemented, but I don't know what the effects have been. So is this something being considered seriously in Korea, or you're curious? You're curious because you read about this for Japan? Yes. No, I'm curious too what kind of effect it would have. But the idea of giving it based on the unborn children, that's pushing it even farther than I think what Demain. I think it was based on the number of children that people had actually had.